tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads from over 200 countries and your #1 source in after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey there, Z Nation fans! Welcome to the very first AfterBuzz recap show for this fantastic zombie show. How are you guys doing today?
I'm alive.
I'm pumped. I'm gonna run until I can't run anymore. I get bit.
That sounds like a plan.
Rule number 1, cardio.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today because we're really excited to talk about this show. Joining me on the panel today, Zach Wilson.
Hey guys.
Roya Taheri.
Hello, everybody.
Katie Cullen.
Hi, all my buddies.
And I'm your host, Megan Salinas. Oh, guys, I am so pumped to talk to you about this today. And for all of our guests, we have a very, very special guest joining us in the studio today. Co-executive producer of the show, Michael Cassutt. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you. I was happy to run right over here to being chased down Ventura Boulevard.
Thanks for the warning.
Yeah.
By zombies?
I'm chased frequently wherever I go. So.
Well, we're really excited because this is the very first episode of the show, and we just hit the ground running with this show. We wanted to ask you what drew you to this project initially?
The money, which turned out to be a huge mistake. No, it was the chance to work with Carl Schaefer. Again, he is a very talented writer. We've worked on various projects going back many years to a show called TV 101 and a show some of you might remember called Erie, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that one.
So when he said, hey, I'm doing a zombie show, I thought, okay, why not? I like zombies, you know. So, and it was a good group of people, fun bunch of writers. Yeah, it was just the usual rule is in television, career-wise, is you go for the money or the people. And in this case, yeah, it was the people. But yeah, that was it.
Well, that's good. And this looks like it's a kind of a different take on at least in terms of the television world, of, you know, the entire zombie genre. How did you guys go about approaching that?
There were some actual antecedents for this, since you said you might deal with symbolism and, you know, highfalutin conversation like that.
All that intellectual mumbo-jumbo.
That's all I've got. But there was a SyFy Channel movie several years ago called Zombie Apocalypse, I believe, co-written by Craig Engler and produced by The Asylum, the Sharknado folks. And SyFy Channel and Asylum kind of came up with the idea, why don't we do something that draws from that world, that concept. And you know, Craig and Carl turned it into a something more designed for a series as opposed to, you know, I don't know, probably a spoiler for the Zombie Apocalypse viewership. You know, people haven't seen it. That I think pretty much everybody dies in that one.
Probably, as you do in zombie movies.
Yeah,
right?
that's kind of sort of a default setting there. So that was really where it came from. I mean, yes, the whole idea, you know, which we're not running from, is, well, there's The Walking Dead. Why do we need another zombie show? And my feeling is, yeah, I like The Walking Dead a lot, but there are different ways you can take some of this as well. There are a lot of vampire shows. There are still a lot of police forensic shows on television, and my feeling is, you know, when people are tired of it, they'll let us know. Haven't quite gotten there yet, and hopefully not with Z Nation.
Well, and it's true. This does look like a very different take. You know, it's kind of comparing, you know, Dawn of the Dead to Zombieland. They're two completely different things.
Yeah, I think, again, everybody on the show was a fan of Walking Dead. I've watched every episode. I think the pilot for Walking Dead is one of the best pieces of television ever, and has some stiff competition for that. It's really well done. It's a really well done show, but it's tied to Kirkman's story, his original graphic novel largely, and it's a little more static. It explores different things, and we just wanted to sort of get the whole idea of the zombie apocalypse. Let's get up and run a little bit. Let's go not just from point A to B, but let's go A to Z. Yeah, it was a long week in the writers' room for that. But so yeah, let's just go where they're not going, and other shows haven't had a chance to go yet. And we do go some places. We have some. You're going to be visiting some famous landmarks, some unusual settings that you would not get to in any of the other zombie product on television.
Well, that's exciting, and I love the running. And
yeah, so you will get there faster.
So, would you say that you're sort of Walking Dead is a great show. It's very dramatic.
Yes.
There's not a lot of fun on that show. So is this like more of the fun?
Yeah, it's the fun zombie apocalypse. But no, our approach was, and Carl articulated this a lot. It's the characters in our show have been through a lot. And like the really deadly serious people have died. I mean, the chances are, if you've gotten this far, you have a pretty sardonic, black sense of humor about what's going on.
Genetically predisposed badass, I believe.
Yes, precise, which we actually got from the Centers for Disease Control. I mean, they actually use that. But yeah, the idea was, I mean, okay, you're in this. Wouldn't you be sort of cracking wise a little bit, or have a pretty dark view of it? I mean, I tend to go there anyway. I mean, I start out pretty much in the ultraviolet, so it may have been casting for me to be on this show.
Well, you have to do that to stay sane.
Yeah, I mean that's our approach. I mean, not to criticize Walking Dead. I mean, it's just very serious. I mean, Andrew Lincoln, who plays Rick, he's a very, very serious individual. I mean, perhaps a tad to excess lately. I mean, I keep waiting for him to actually deliver a line now and then, but that's just...
But that's the show. That's the dramatic thing. And that's great for a number of reasons, but sometimes you want just somebody with a beer can mace striking people.
Exactly.
So yeah, like they're waiting for the buzzards, and we're the buzzards who are kind of saying, well, we're tired of waiting. I'm going to go kill something. Let's make it happen. So there's a tonal difference there. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that makes this distinctive from other things that are out there right now. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. Well, let's go ahead and jump into it. We kick off the ground running because the opening is just a lot of quick cuts to just introduce you to the world and to the chaos. And I did want to ask, is this right when the outbreak is at its worst, or is it because they say 3 years after the zombie apocalypse, the national government has collapsed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're already into it. There's kind of 2 time jumps in the original. It's we're here, zombie apocalypse 3 years later, and now we're desperate. Everything's gone, and we're trying to figure out, is there something we can do about this? And you have the initial scene, and there's a slight jump after that, but we're 3 years in to start.
Okay, so that's good to know. And the one of the first lines is, the president is dead, and there's no need to panic, even though government itself has collapsed at this point.
It's all good, guys. It's all good. They got it handled.
Is that really so different from today?
Yeah. I would say thanks, Obama, but the president was a woman.
Yeah, exactly. Lindsay Burton, I think, was the name.
What I like about we're far enough into the future, because there's no saying that year 0 of the zombie apocalypse was 2015. It could have been 2000 anything. We're far enough in the future that we have a woman president. We're also far enough into the future that the NSA has a single communications hub somewhere that is unreachable by usual transport and may not even be on United States soil.
Yeah,
so we got some good things, and we got some really worrying.
They make it very clear
what
that
makes you think that doesn't happen, or it doesn't exist now? In fact,
that exists right now.
That's the worrying part.
But no, they make it very clear that the Northern Lights NSA hub is actually in the Arctic, far, far out from everything, where the chaos is ensuing. But we start out in the infection control lab, if I could talk.
The confection control lab, where they make zombie cake.
It's a confectionery delight, but
and it will kill you.
But we have Delta X-ray. Again, I can't talk today. We have Delta X-ray. I did 2 shows earlier. Leave me be. But we have Hammond's group going in to retrieve this doctor and a couple of her test subjects and any other survivors that they can do, and the place is just being overrun. And so he's trying to get them out, but she is very determined that these 3 are our last hope in terms of finding a possible vaccine. So they try using the vaccine on 2 out of the 3 volunteers.
Yeah.
Strapped to a table, you have been voluntold.
Yeah.
And
they are prisoners. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, they're wearing orange jumpsuits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing about the world that we have here, that there's been an executive order that it's okay to test things on prisoners against their will, which is very much it's an instant makes you think of Nazis kind of thing, because that's what they did. But at the same time, they still are required to read them a paragraph telling them why this is okay.
Which would also
legal.
make you think of Nazis. Yeah. To go back to it.
Well, and
only in German. Yeah.
This is an act of desperation. This is hopefully not something that would happen in normal circumstances, but we're 2 years into the zombie apocalypse. We're at year Z02. It's bad enough that we're basically running out of supplies, people, time. It's an act of desperation.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Is it a bad thing, really, though, for them to test on them? I mean, if you're a prisoner, obviously they're going to keep you. I'd rather be like Murphy and have the potential of being saved.
Well, this is the moral dilemma. Is it okay to intentionally harm 1 person to save 100? Is it okay to do that to save 5, to save 2,000? Like, how many people is it okay to sacrifice somebody for? I mean, I think
world, evidently.
Murphy says, like, we get rights. We're still human.
Exactly.
Like, who knows what that guy did? He could have, like, robbed a 7-Eleven, and now he's, like, up for human testing.
He was a network executive.
He deserves to die.
Actually, on the website, it says that he committed some sort of white collar crime. So he could be next to 2 murderers, and maybe he did a little accounting fraud, and you're gonna get killed for it.
He's a really jacked guy for a white collar crime.
Yeah. Well,
he works out a lot.
Who knows how long
he's been
there.
been lifting weights for a couple of years. Yeah.
But that's the thing, is 2 out of these 3 test subjects die immediately, and poor Murphy, he gets injected anyway despite his protests, and not long after he does, the room just gets overrun, and Hammond gets the doctor out, but decides to go back for him because he can still hear the guys screaming, and he was our last hope. And so he gets the doctor to the chopper and says, if we're not back in 2 minutes, go without us.
You know what's really freaky about that? Not the fact that zombies came in, the fact that zombies knocked on the door. That freaked me out. He's
That
like,
is so true.
Take that, Walking Dead.
Yeah,
Where are the
right?
polite zombies?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, and it was his partner, so I wonder if his partner didn't do that right before he died or right before he turned, and it was, oh, okay, it's my partner.
Well, it's a calm knock if his partner was running away still. He's like, hey.
As opposed to Murphy.
Actually, what you should have said is land shark.
Candy Graham.
Or in our case, land sharknado.
Oh, SyFy.
Candy Graham.
But that does actually bring up some very interesting questions, because we've seen all different types of zombies and all different types of mental awareness in those types of zombies. We've seen types of zombies where they are completely there, and they just happen to be dead. But then we've seen other ones where it's nothing. There's nothing left of the person left at all. It's just the mindless need to eat. But if he was a zombie prior to knocking on the door, if he had the presence of mind to knock because they knew that would open up the door without any problem, that's kind of terrifying. If that says a lot about the type of villain we have to face in this series.
I actually find it much more terrifying for them to be unintelligent. Because this is the reason that zombies, I think, are some of the scariest creatures out there. Because a vampire you can reason with, in theory. Like, you might not win, but you can reason with them because they're a conscious being. A zombie
might be like, I like you. I like the cut of your jib.
Exactly. But a zombie
last.
doesn't care. It doesn't matter what you think, what you have to say, what reason you might have that they shouldn't eat you. they are just going to go for the kill. There's nothing you can do to stop them except to kill them.
But an unintelligent zombie is predictable. An intelligent one that you have assumed unintelligent because you've seen all the zombie media, you've seen 28 Days Later and whatever, and you're like, okay, zombies, they're mindless. If these are smart zombies and the characters are assuming that they're not, that's going to lead to major trouble. Yeah. Starting with the knock on the door.
That puts any survivors at a major disadvantage. And so it's just going to be very interesting. And we haven't gotten any, although we see a little bit later on of the possibility of more
zombies.
Exactly. Of the possibility of more intelligence there.
And driving the bus. Too.
Yeah, exactly. They still have some sort of cognition there, and that's kind of weird. It's hard to tell whether it's just kind of an after image or an echo of the person they used to be, or if it's something more conniving and something more sinister.
Well, if these are viral zombies and not reanimated corpse zombies, then it could well be that the brain's still kicking away in there.
That's actually one of the things we've tried to play is how long ago did some person get bitten? It's like our faster zombies are fresh. It's the ones that are 3 years old are shambling and decayed and really, really dead. But there is a spectrum.
They make a comment about that when somebody comes running up. They're like, oh, he must have just turned.
Just turned, yeah.
Exactly.
I guess that's eventually muscles will atrophy and whatnot from not being used, so they would become more useless and eventually just crumble.
In our zombie design lab, we spent a lot of time.
I like this already.
Spent a lot of time discussing. Okay, how far decayed do they get? How quickly does it happen? I mean, there's a zombie. I mean, just playing the science fiction game for a while. All right, some virus has destroyed the brain and turned them into a chomping, mindless being, but it's there. I mean, something is animating it, and that something uses energy. How much energy does it have? I mean, is the heart still beating? And then you have, zombies have a hole in their heart. How far do they go? I mean, what is sort of the
what keeps them ticking?
Yeah, and I don't know that we've got an answer, but we certainly have suggested a few different answers. So, and in fact, maybe our guys, none of them, they don't know either. They're just reacting to what they've seen. So
well, and now that we're discussing this, I have a question about what this cure means, this supposed cure, because Murphy was bit obviously numerous times and didn't turn into a zombie, but then and they say he's our only hope for a cure. What does a cure mean? Does a cure mean that you inject this zombie with the cure and it just immediately dies and disintegrates, or is there the possibility that the person inside could still come back?
The way I saw, at least in the experiment when they were in the prison, it was they were injecting him with the serum, it was like it was a vaccine, right before,
and they keep calling it a vaccine.
So then, well, if it's a vaccine, then it's preventative.
Okay,
it wouldn't fix it in post. You can't inject a malaria vaccine after somebody's gotten malaria and
make
it worse.
They're gone.
I tried a hangover vaccine. It doesn't.
But then that's very interesting, because then you could prevent anybody else from becoming a zombie and therefore stop the zombie apocalypse.
And if they're the type that crumble, as we're hearing, then eventually it's like a waiting game. You just have, if everybody's immune, then you just wait for them all to die out.
Exactly.
So what do you do? Just put your arm out and have them nibble on it and be like, you want some? Die like a bee that stings you?
Well, you still have to defend yourself, because these are still a type of zombies that will rip you into pieces.
Yeah, as we saw.
They just won't make more of them. Eventually, if everyone's vaccinated, the zombies will die off.
I mean, technically, we don't know exactly how the vaccine how it affects the zombies, because when what's his name?
Hammond,
went back for Murphy. We didn't see that scene of Murphy being saved by him, or if maybe Murphy saved himself by the vaccine.
But we do see Hammond, the next time we see him, he's got this big old scar on his face. So he clearly didn't make it out 100% without a scratch.
He was bit a lot, but didn't turn. So,
exactly.
Although you see when he pulls his tooth out
later,
that's worrying.
There may be a little side effect.
Yeah, that's
maybe it just slows it down.
Yeah, maybe it's just his blood or whatever slowed down the effects of the actual zombie virus, but can't actually prevent it.
Maybe he's turning into a super zombie.
Or it's a modified form of the virus. It could well be.
Or maybe he never got his wisdom teeth out.
He had some of that prison dental care.
Maybe Hammond punched him off screen and he's just pulling off his, like, oh, okay, that's why it hurt.
I'm sure that happened more than once.
Yeah, Murphy as a character is somebody you'd be happy to punch. As,
yeah, that's kind of hilarious that humanity's only hope is this complete total jerk.
He's even more than that. There are things he does that are just nasty and mean. Ultimately.
Yeah.
Well, he may have been in prison for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah, and it will be very interesting to see how that progresses. But to get back into the episode, yes, it's very clear that Hammond saves Murphy, but back at the NSA headquarters, Simon, who becomes Citizen Z later in the episode, he and his group are getting ready to evacuate, and he goes now once the chopper takes off and they're safe, but as he goes to evacuate, he realizes that they left him behind because he was supposed to be out minutes ago, and he sees the plane taking off without him, and something goes wrong. We don't know what, but it just goes crashing to the ground, and now he's presumably stranded there because he's in the Arctic. Where's he gonna go?
I felt really bad for him.
Oh,
they didn't even wait for him for a second. They just ditched him.
No, he said 2 minutes and we're in there. You can't. It's the military. You don't wait.
Here's what I don't understand. Why did they go in the first place? They're obviously clearing out this facility, but zombies freeze. This is too far north for any of the zombies to make it up there, especially if aircraft is the only way to go in and out. Why were they leaving? This is a safe space.
I imagine they're needed elsewhere, though. Like they're like, leave the lights on. We might be back.
Exactly.
But they're communications people, not front line.
I mean,
different skill set.
But if the front line's gone, then you need to move to where you're needed.
Yeah, the idea was that there is this whole Operation Bite Mark. It had reached a certain level, and this team that was in the NSA Northern Light Station were heading for the rendezvous as well. There is a project to, Mount Wilson, California lab to take the fight back to the zombies, pull it together. Just oops.
Womp womp.
Especially if you have a limited amount of personnel. If like DC's probably fallen, all the big cities are done.
The East is particularly bad in our show.
But you'd think that when winter came, it would wipe out the zombies.
They just
Eastern
freezes
winters
them.
are rough.
Not necessarily.
Slows them down.
Yeah, the mythology that I've learned is like it freezes them, and then comes spring, they're back.
Yeah.
Flowers.
The polar vortex.
Like daisies.
And also
polar
with climate change, 3 years into the zombie apocalypse, things are just a little warmer throughout the United States. But it is still, it is still the further north they are, the less likely you are to ever see one moving.
It's like a really scary version of Encino Man every spring.
It's terrifying. If Encino Man had been a zombie, that would have been an entirely different
You could probably
movie.
sell that.
We'll write a pitch for it later.
Yeah.
It'll be great. But after we get the opening credits, we get introduced to a couple different characters from Camp Blue Sky. Some ex-National Guard people. We have Warren and Garnett. And we get introduced to their characters, and they kind of seem to be, some of these genetically predisposed badasses who have survived, and not only have survived, but have taken charge and are taking care of other people.
What I like about this, we see essentially a funeral for a 64-year-old woman who is still alive at the time and simply wants to be put out of her misery. And the way they do this is they're calling it the Eighth Sacrament.
Yeah.
And we actually saw this a year ago with Hammond shooting the zombies and saying, I give you mercy, not Murphy, mercy.
I take
they
Murphy.
gave him Murphy too. He was on a table.
We'll be giving people Murphy later.
But saying, I give you mercy, and then pulling the trigger. And it seems that this culture has arisen. They're calling it the Eighth Sacrament. They're saying, we didn't even have time to give him mercy. We just had to bail.
Yeah.
Like they think that the souls in these zombies are still savable if they can send them on to God. The bodies we're done with that.
And that's something very interesting that you don't see in a lot of zombie, in a lot of different zombie things, because it's usually just kill the zombie so that you can go on living. It's very rarely do we get the opportunity to, as you say, kind of put this poor person out of their misery.
It humanizes the zombies instead of viewing them as, oh, they're this mindless mass of monsters that want to eat us all. It's they used to be people. They might still be people. We need to get the souls out so the other life can take care of of
think
them.
more so it humanizes our characters who are still with us, because they haven't become like these soulless kind of killing machines who are dead-eyed, who, you know, just kill people because that's the only way you survive. They genuinely feel like it's the right thing to do to put somebody out of their misery.
Unfortunately, that comes to kick them at the end of the episode.
Exactly.
I was gonna say, do you think that's naive of them to think that way?
It's something, I mean, it can result in some careless actions, as we see later on, but it's the constant question of holding on to your humanity. And we see this a lot in zombie things, because zombies are us, and it's the question of what separates us from them. And so it's our humanity that separates us, and so we do everything we can to hold on to our humanity. And that might be naive, but it might be just something that these people hold on to carry on living without losing their souls along the way.
It's similar to keeping your sense of humor. You need it to keep going. Otherwise, you may as well just lie down and let the zombies get you, because what's the point?
Or even worse, you become something far worse than any zombie threat. And, you know, something that they bring up in The Walking Dead, I don't want to keep harping back to The Walking Dead. It's a great show, but you know, the worst thing is when you see people who have lost their humanity, not the zombies, because they're just mindless eating machines, but when you see people who genuinely like hurting other people, that's even worse.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I don't know. What's
Asking
your take
the
on
deep
it?
questions.
No, I like what you guys are going with that. I just, for me, for killing the older lady, I thought that wasn't naive. That was nice of them to put her out of her misery before she turned.
Exactly. Yeah.
But for the zombies, I think they should survive. So if they gotta survive, we gotta survive. I guess you guys don't want to get on my bad side during a zombie apocalypse.
Well, it's like a religious ceremony, not just because they're calling it the eighth sacrament, but it's like there's no, a lot of times, and in the case at the end, there's not a logistical reason for doing it, but they feel they need to. They're compelled by supernatural, by spiritual things. It seems like it to be a bad decision at certain times.
Yeah, exactly. But it is something for them to hold on to.
And also, if moral decisions have no penalty, then what's the challenge?
Exactly.
You know, there has to be a potential price to be paid.
Yeah,
and,
but it's
I love Hammond later saying, "I hate moral dilemmas."
Yeah.
Well, it's like if you're a religious person in the zombie apocalypse, I guess you could see zombie killing as work. So if you're not going to work on the Sabbath, that's going to end poorly for you.
Well, and even
Hasidic
worse,
zombies, Orthodox zombies. There's a
Amish zombies in the trailer.
Yes.
well, even worse, if you are a religious person in the zombie apocalypse and you think that they are still people, then that's a huge dilemma, because, you know, thou shalt not kill, but you have to kill to live and everything like that in this world.
It's a case of where is your God now? It really is.
It's a lot. It's very interesting, and I like that this show is touching on just those little things without having to go into a lot of exposition. It's just world building, and we get little tidbits.
Oh, the world building is beautiful.
And I like that. But as we get introduced after that scene, we see that Murphy and Hammond have rowed up to shore and are asking Garnett and Warren for their assistance because this gentleman in the back here may be humanity's last hope and everything like that. So as they're kind of trying to convince these two people to get them to the rendezvous point, we kind of cut back to, I don't want to call them our B team, but they're
the B team.
Yeah. But to our B team.
The Z team.
The Z team. That works.
I like that.
Which is Addie, Doc, and Mac, and they're trading with other people, and I kind of love the kind of like back and forth banter that they have to try to negotiate, you know, what they're going to trade for what, and
aspirin for bullets.
Yeah.
just like aspirin can't stop a zombie. That's ridiculous.
Bullets can't stop a headache.
I love the custom weaponry. That's my favorite part about zombie lore, is like the crazy ways you can come up with to kill zombies, whether it's like the baseball bat or like my favorite is from World War Z. They have the shovel that's also an axe. Useful and dangerous.
Axe shovel. Before we go on though, because this group gets attacked, but we see these weapons in action, and it's going to be great to. And I think that's just another good example of the tonal difference that we see that makes the show unique. But before we go on, I want to talk to you guys really quick about iTunes. Folks, this is our very first episode, so if you like what we do here at AfterBuzz, AfterBuzz puts out more than 70 shows a week. Our poor engineers work like 90 hours a week to bring you this content. So as this being our first show, we really need your guys' support. Go to iTunes, rate us, let us know what you think of the show. Leave a comment because it lets our bosses know that you like the show that we're doing and that you like hearing us talk about Z Nation. So,
and it also tells the network, in this case SyFy, that you like the show as well, because they do pay attention to this. Don't kid yourselves.
Exactly.
Yes.
So everything you guys can do to help, we would very much appreciate it. But anyway, let's get back because we've got a lot to cover and not a lot of time to do it. So basically after that, we have Warren and Hammond and Garnett and Murphy going to meet the rendezvous point, but then when they hear from our B team that that zombies have overrun, these zombies that were lying in wait in the water, which was super creepy, have just overrun the camp, and they decide to go back for them, much to Hammond's, discontent, because he just wants to go and move forward with his mission. He doesn't care about any of these people. But so they go back and they rescue our B team before heading on over to the rendezvous
From
point.
a bus full of child zombies. The bus comes rolling out of the wreckage, and they're like, oh, it's the escape bus. Which tells you, yeah, they had a plan in place. They had an evacuation plan. They knew what they were doing. Oh, they got the kids out. There's a zombie on board. They're all going to be zombies within the next 2 minutes. Bus crashes into a tree. Zombies pour out, and carnage.
You gotta armor that bus up, and then it's gotta be your zombie vehicle.
It was just a great scene, start to finish. It really was.
It was. It built up a lot of the tension. And then as sad it is that all these kind of kids we saw running around camp are now zombies, like the kind of sort of heartbreak from that, it kind of goes away when we see 4 zombies just get hit by the truck.
Yeah.
Get in! Yeah. And everything like that.
Well, and this was necessary because we have to have our team go on. This means that all of these people no longer have a place to go back to.
Exactly.
So they're stuck with our heroes, and so we continue.
The only way to go on is to move forward. So they move forward to the civil defense setup that they have in Sleepy Hollow, New York.
Sleepy Hollow.
I know, right? Perfect. So they move on to there because where else are they going to go? That's the only thing that they can do. And when they get there, the place, again, it's in ruins. It's in tatters. So Hammond takes charge, and he's like, okay, everybody, we're going to look for survivors and supplies. And while they're looking, not only do we see somebody nearby looking at our group like through the lens of a sniper rifle, we also see they also find a baby, and
the baby's
a real live baby
at this point.
Yeah.
Did anyone else notice, and you tell me if this was intentional, that baby is dressed exactly like Oscar from Ghostbusters 2?
Oh.
Am I pulling that out of nowhere? It looked identical to the baby from Ghostbusters 2.
It's a yellow onesie.
I have no knowledge of that.
Although, if we are talking
I'm
about
not cleared for that.
if we are talking about outfits, I have to say I love Garnett's outfit because it's a blue shirt and brown pants, and I'm like, he's dressed just like Ash from Evil Dead, and that makes my heart ever so happy. I don't know if that was intentional or if that was a specific nod or if it was just a coincidence, but it makes me happy.
And if we're talking about references, the first time that Murphy and Hammond show up, they say, well, how'd you hear about Blue Sky? Well, this ex-police officer and a group hunkered up in a prison told us about it. Yeah.
There are a few of those, yeah.
It's wonderful.
A few little Easter eggs in there.
It's wonderful. I was very amused.
Those just those little tidbits, they're a lot of fun.
No, they're fun for us and fun for the costume people. You know, they have their own, everyone's got their own sort of appreciation of and interest in. I mean, the one thing we did find going to Spokane, where this is shot, This is the first time we did a casting call for zombie extras. We had like 900 people show up. I didn't know there were 900 people who wanted to be extras in Spokane or anything, you know. So
I didn't know there were 900 people in Spokane.
I was waiting for that joke.
I just teed that up for you, but
yeah, I appreciate it.
But it's So and everybody has a little bit of something they want to bring to it, especially, and that's the fun thing of a television production, because it goes on and on after a while, and it becomes a sort of demented family. And there are some people who get into it in odd ways, and sometimes you, even as a writer, showrunner, producer, you kind of go, where did that come from? And nobody will quite admit to it, or you don't quite know, or you appreciate it later. But yeah.
Exactly.
It's pretty wonderful.
But one of the other things they find is they go up to the roof and there's a girl in a cage who has seemingly locked herself in there, and they kill the zombies that are trying to get to her. And when they free her, she's like, oh, she attacks them, and you know, she's like, sorry about that. I was asleep. I didn't, you know, I was a little disoriented. And they were like, you were asleep with all that going on? How long have you been in here? And she's been in there for 2 days. And they don't mention her by name, but her name's Cassandra. And we don't know much about her. And they make it very clear that they don't trust her. Because obviously the whole compound is in ruins, and she's one of the few survivors, if not, like, besides the baby, the only survivor that they've come across so far.
That baby.
Well, I guess the question is, she's locked in there. Did she put herself in there for protection? Did somebody
Most
else put
likely.
them in her? Did somebody put her in there to protect her from zombies, to keep her away from them?
There are so many questions, and she's not saying a whole lot. She's like, use your brain, figure, you know, you put the rest together. Everything like that.
You'll find out a lot more about Cassandra in episode 2.
Yay. Yes, that's exciting.
But not every answer.
No, of course not. But
What would be the point?
Exactly. But as they're spreading out to, again, check more supplies, our B team gets attacked by a zombie, but the sniper on the roof takes out the zombie expertly. And they don't mention him by name either, but his name is 10K, and he just kind of scurries away without receiving a thank you or anything like that, but he goes off after saving them, and which was a huge relief, because he had been staring at them through his sniper rifle the whole time, and I was like, is this a friend? Is this a foe? What is going on here?
Don't shoot, Doc.
Oh, please don't.
Some old guy like, get off my lawn.
I feel like he could have been one of the students at the high school that this encampment was set up as. He's young.
He's really young.
Giddy.
Yeah.
Well, he's there.
He
He's
has shoe treads on
prepared.
his
He's
shoulders.
ready. He's ready to like go shoot. I mean, what high school doesn't have sniper rifles on hand for just such an occasion?
I went to high school in Wyoming, and there were fewer guns there.
I must have missed that in PE. I must have missed that little sign up, that intramural sport. But he's not the only one we find. As they're separated, Garnett and Murphy get attacked because they're watching the baby. And as Murphy is clearing the room, something happens. It's not quite entirely clear how, but during the skirmish, the baby gets turned into a zombie baby and proceeds to scurry around the room just like a little evil gremlin of despair and horror, everything like that.
It became terrifyingly ambulatory. I was not expecting ambulatory zombie baby. That was, wow.
Look, if the zombie virus makes slow people suddenly move fast when they die, it can make a baby run.
That's true. I have to wonder, like, how much of an adrenaline, like, just everything that's left in the system just goes as soon as the person turns into a zombie. Maybe that's it.
I was really hoping the baby would be like, I want to hang out and be friendly. But no, the way it turned its head in that cage, in the seat, I'm like, no, you're not going to be a friendly dead baby, are you?
As soon as that baby showed up, I was like, oh my god, it's going to be a zombie baby. And when it wasn't, I was just waiting.
They showed the zombie baby in the trailer. The
I saw it
first
before I
little
watched
teaser
any
trailer for-
promos or trailers.
Ah.
Yeah, I haven't seen a baby zombie since Dead Alive, so again, lots of fun little references for fans of the genre.
Alive, I forgot about that.
I know, right?
Pride and
Peter
Prejudice and
Jackson.
zombies for me.
But anyway, so they run out of the room and they have the door closed, but they decide, again, this concept of mercy. They can't leave a baby to that kind of fate. And
And Warren dropped the ball right then and there. It was, kill it, I can't, kill it, I can't, run away. Good job, everyone.
They couldn't do it, and so Hammond decides to go in, and before he does, though, he tells Garnett that he's like, you need to get it together because I can't be doing your dirty work, basically. So he goes in there and unfortunately gets attacked by another zombie.
Baby mama.
Baby mama. and then the two of them, the baby and the baby mama, they attack him and they're eating him, and so everybody else comes in and there's just nothing they can do for him at this point, so they just shoot all three of them.
We were 5 minutes of screen time away from having a black main character in a horror franchise.
Way to go, Garnett.
5 minutes.
Did anyone else think they wasted a lot of ammo?
Yeah, they did.
I will concede that was a little bit more of a fusillade than was probably actually required.
Yeah.
You know, the other flaw in the episode is that we wanted to sort of make it clear, and it didn't quite, is that the baby was actually ill. You know, it's like, and it just, you couldn't quite get the cries right. And
well, he looked like a healthy baby, so
Yeah.
it was kind of odd. Like, what happened there? Because
we
he
went
looked fine a
we
minute
were
ago.
casting for sick babies.
No, that'd be a little odd.
We would have had to go to LA.
Well, unfortunately, we are running short on time. But just to wrap up the episode, they get a message from Simon over at the NSA headquarters, who says, you know, that they have to get Murphy to California. And then unfortunately the radio dies on them, and with Hammond dead, it's up to Garnett to sort of step it up because he's the one, quote unquote, in charge. And so he decides, okay, we're going to California. California, here we come, because we've got no other options at this point. And simultaneously up at the Northern Lights station, Simon decides to become Citizen Z. And I don't know if this is something he had been doing previously, but since he doesn't have a direct line to them anymore, he just starts broadcasting out on every frequency he can, hoping that he'll reach them.
This is like what I wanted to see from DJ Qualls. It's just like pure fun. He's just like, yeah, okay, end of the world. I'm gonna play some music.
Well, he can either do that, or he can continue talking to the recording of his ostensibly dead, ostensibly wife and or girlfriend.
Yeah, that was a heartbreaking
choices.
scene. Was just talking to the recording on the computer.
Yeah.
But how long can he take doing this until he goes completely crazy?
Oh, I think we're at that point already. Yeah.
This is like the last thread of his sanity, and anymore, and he's just gonna snap. Well, anyway,
I got a quick question for you before
Yes.
you start wrapping up. So in this world, is there electricity?
In places.
In places.
Because there are still, say, you know, solar powered things that are still operating. So you'll find security cameras and even some traffic lights and, you know, odd things. There's parts of the infrastructure that's still functioning. People can make a power plant, you know, fire it back up. There's a nuclear power plant in one episode that's still sort of running. So in places, yes, just that there are still sort of communication, and the phone lines still exist. It's a question of what you do with stuff, and the satellites that NSA operates are still up there, still looking down. So if you have the right dish, the right power to a receiver, you can get the information that is still sort of floating around anyway. The one thing that's a great scene later on where they do need to get a password for something, and Citizen Z says, "Ma'am, we're NSA. That's not a problem."
That's really exciting.
Nice.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have time, I think, to go into predictions. They're giving us the wrap sign. But since we have you in the studio, really quick, what can we expect from this upcoming season?
You'll see some zombie stuff you have not seen anywhere else, starting with flaming oil-soaked zombies next week, and Amish zombies. Just get ready.
That's exciting. Where can people go online if they want to find out more about you and about the work you do?
SyFy.com and also Z Nation on Twitter.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Okay, thank you guys for tuning in. Zach Wilson, where can the people find you?
Hey guys, thanks for geeking out with us tonight. I'm Zach Wilson. You can catch me at That Zach Wilson. Also here at AfterBuzz on Doctor Who Classics with these two over here. Got a bunch of stuff coming back in the fall, including Grimm, Resurrection, Grace Point's a new one. So tune in.
And guys, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HeyRoya. It's HeyRoya. What do you guys?
You can find me on Twitter and Tumblr at Kiaxet. That's Kiaxet. I am also on Attack on Titan and Sword Art Online on Sundays, Doctor Who Classics on Wednesdays, and in the fall, Arrow also on Wednesdays, and Ruby every other Thursday.
And I'm Megan. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheMenguin. That's TheMenguin. And you can find me on all of those shows. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the first recap for Z Nation. We will see you guys next week. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.